Hey everyone, Erin here. So today's video is actually about taking a look at containers and figuring out why we like what we like in them. I feel like studying containers that you have an emotional reaction to and trying to figure out what it is that you really like in those containers is really valuable in designing your own containers. So when I was in Florida about a month and a half ago, I went around and I filmed a bunch of containers that I thought were really outstanding and one that wasn't. And I thought I'm just going to talk through what I see in these and what I think makes them great. And hopefully it just sparks some ideas for you if you're looking to kind of level up your containers this year. Now, granted, a lot of these have a bit of a tropical bent, but there's some real lessons to be learned from those tropical plants that even if you're not working with that kind of plant, you can take those same strategies and apply those to, any typical annual you might find at your garden center. So we're just going to roll right into it. There's a bit of a voiceover here because I have not yet gotten to that point where I feel comfortable talking into a camera on the street. So let's roll into it. This first set of containers is actually outside a real estate office, and I know that these were designed by Jack Barnwell, who you might know from Mackinac Island, and he did these. These were massive containers, really nice, simple black containers that didn't fit in very well with the whole architecture of the whole place. But he just packed these containers full of some really great stuff. And, I think the thing that you're going to see over and over and over again here is that containers with a tropical bent rely mostly on foliage versus flowers. And that foliage gives them great textural contrast. And I think you can see that really well because there's this, I don't know, what is that? Some kind of palm in the top there. But it's got that great sort of feathery foliage. That bright pink that you see there is cordyline fructosa, which is also, you might know it as a Thai plant. I saw those everywhere and I really, I've seen them before, but boy, they sure caught my eye over and over and over again. And then you've got this variegated plant. That's a Schefflera. And then, of course, he does have, it looks like some begonias tucked in there. But as far as I can tell, those are the only flowers in this container, which is pretty wild. And, of course, this was a matching set. I think there were 3 of them. And, of course, they looked fabulous playing with each other. I would say these containers were maybe 4 feet across. They were big. Next up, we have another Jack Barnwell design. This was in front of a hotel. I think these were recently planted because they don't look to me like they've grown in a ton yet. But again, you've got a series of large white, very simple containers that you can play this color off of. And again, he's used this cordyline fructosa. He's got some bromeliads in there. Again, that same palm. Little bit of creeping Jenny, which just shows you how useful that plant can be. And then I believe there were some New Guinea impatiens in there. Probably sun patience would be my guess. But really just a colorful, fun, really striking container, especially when you've got them planted in a series here. And you can see he's used Spanish moss as a bit of a mulch on there to cover any extra soil, which is kind of a nice little touch in these. I came across these 3 pots. This is a few streets over. And I like the idea that these pots are the same color, but not all the same style. But I just wish there were 3 different ones instead of 2 of one and one of this great sort of oil jar type of thing. But this is more of a traditional container. Not necessarily relying quite as heavily on those tropical elements. Nice height in this. Actually, this first one's really interesting. You've got a snake plant in there, some snapdragons, and then I think there's some bromeliads in there as well. Really nice, I thought. This next one doesn't do it for me as much, but I did like this far one in the corner with the bromeliads and some petunias in there. And I think as that one grows and fills in, that could look really great. I think it looks a little flat right now, but kind of an interesting combination, I thought, here of the foliage with the flowers. And really that's it. Pretty simple, actually. But that, the great thing with tropical foliage is just how much of a statement it makes. another series of containers. And of course, this is all commercial areas, so that's why you get these enormous containers that, come in quantities of 5 or more. This was a great container that was kind of raised on these steps, and it was the perfect pot for this spot. So I loved this one primarily for the pot, to be honest with you, because I thought it was just so great. Those plants in there are all the kinds of plants that we might plant in a container. We've got a salvia in there, geraniums, alyssum. I believe that's evolvus. The little blue in the front, I think, is evolvus in there. Again, all of these things look like they might have been semi-recently planted. I'm sure they replant these containers multiple times throughout the season. And it was probably the beginning, just towards the beginning of the high season when I was down there. So they probably plant them up shortly before then. But I thought kind of an interesting, nice plant. I think once this grows in and you get that great salvia, that could be something like rockin' blue suede shoes maybe. Once that gets growing, this is going to look really wild and great. Now, I know that you guys have probably spotted the great containers behind that because you are on the lookout for this. And yeah, I did too. See that green container in the back? Well, I had to go check that out because I think that pot is gorgeous. It's a little bit more traditional than I would probably use, but I'm loving that green color. It's kind of a different thing than the bright blue pottery that I really do love, but you see more often, sort of this French green color. And what I really like about this is the color contrast that they've chosen to use with this. So because there's so much green in that pot, you don't see a lot of green foliage. What you see is that they relied on that gray foliage from Dichondra Silver Falls there. Again, I'm not sure exactly what that is in the back for the height there, but this is pretty common stuff here. We've got some Impatients in there and some violas in there. I mean, this is nothing wild and crazy. And I think once this one grows in, you're going to have a really pretty pot. But I really have to say that green color I thought was so striking. And it was nice to see a colorful pot, given that most of the other pots that I saw down there were very simple, either black or white. So I was down there, like I said, almost 2 months ago now, and I came across this pot. Now, since then, Jack Barnwell has actually done an entire video about the location of these. So this is another Jack Barnwell pot. He's getting a lot of business. He's got a second company down in Naples, and he's getting a lot of this container business, particularly in sort of the main downtown area of Old Naples. This one caught my eye because although I have mixed feelings about these aquapots designs, or I guess these are Michael Carr designs, that have the sort of sandy top part and then move into color. I actually think it's the perfect pot for this particular spot. And I'm starting on this one with the still picture because I'm going to take you into the little video, which Jack kind of skipped over on his video when he did this, and I don't know why. But, okay, so I think the thing to see here is that Jack was working with a very similar palette of plants all along this area. So even because he is contracted to work with multiple businesses, there's a lot of cohesion among the street. Even if he wasn't necessarily planning that, that's how it ended up. And this one is really great. Again, we've got another one of those cordyline fructosas in there. I cannot remember the name of this great variegated plant in the front. And I wrote it down when I was down there, and I can't find my notes. But I have seen that as a house plant where I live, in the tropical section. So that is of some interest. But what I wanted to show you was how cool the little mini garden area is that's right next to it that leads to this little fountain outside this restaurant, because all of the plants in this garden are also in that pot. It's almost like a deconstructed version of the pot, sort of spilled out into this very skinny little garden space by this beautiful fountain, which Jack talks about a little bit in his video. Now, these planters
really caught my eye because they're a really interesting shape and a really interesting height. Now, these were hiding kind of a funny little wall, but these would have been also great as a divider. So if you needed to either hide a wall or you needed to like divide a space, I think this size and shape of container is a really great idea. I have to assume that this is a Jack Barnwell design. I don't know that for a fact, but all of these plants are matching all of the other planters, so I'm guessing this is a Jack Barnwell design. But what's really cool about this one is those bright orange sun pations. He really went nuts with the color here, and it's not garish in any way. I just think it looks great. So we have those palms again in the top. We have cordyline fructosa again. We've got that Schefflera, Persian shield right there in the front and center, which I think is a really important plant to help make the pink of the cordyline work with the bright orange of the sun patients. And then creeping Jenny trailing out of there. And, you know, that is a really common plant. I think we've probably all used it at some point. I still think it's one of the best trailers for a pot if that's the color that you're looking for. And although I don't like to be critical, I just wanted to throw this picture in as a don't do it this way kind of thing, because that is the drip watering system there. And I understand that that drip is a necessity there, and that it was probably really complicated to figure this out, but there must have been a better way to do this than just leave the drip just kind of hanging out there.
All right, gang, that's it. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please do me a favor, give this video a like. It really does help. And if you haven't subscribed, do that, because we are rolling into the sort of fun part of gardening season, and there is a lot of good stuff coming. All right, have a great day in your garden. We'll see you soon.